half a cup of coffee. And
Attached to it, yeah, caffeine, okay.
Just hit the live stream. All right. Well, it is on you.
Okay, we'll get started. All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Children's Services of Leon's Executive Committee meeting. Today's date is Monday, February 14th, and the time is now 5 p.m. So we are going to call the meeting to order. With that, I am going to ask Ms. Clay to do a roll call for us.
Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Watt?
here,
Dr. Glenn?
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum, guys. All right, perfect. Thank you so very much. All right, it is now time for us to approve the agenda. Do I have a
Madam
motion?
Chair, I'll move the agenda.
All right,
second,
all right. So we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye, of course. All right, thank you very much. The agenda is now approved. All right, it is now time on our agenda for general public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any comment cards?
There's no public comment.
No public comments. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so the majority of the conversation today is for us to talk about the CSC Leon staffing structure. If you all remember in, I think it was the meeting before last of our general council meeting, the programs committee instructed the staff to go back and put together a staffing plan to accommodate the rollout of some of our proposed work that's coming up. So the staff has come up with a proposed staffing structure that they're going to share with us today. And then it is my intent that we will look at this and then take this back to the full council based on the conversation we have today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ms. Glenn.
You, Chair Glenn. So, okay, so you're gonna let me drive. Very good. All right, so in your packet, you will see the very first thing, which is a quick timeline of the CSC. Okay, let's see if I can make this work.
You can put down the arrow buttons on my,
I can?
you should be able. It's not moving.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's okay. So I wanted to include this because I know that there's a lot of talk about us being in existence for 3 years and what we've done or haven't done. And so just want to bring to the public's attention that we really didn't collect our first ad valorem until November, December of 2021. And got the full-time executive director in January. And then if you go further down, we were able to do the summer procurement. And then you go further down. And so December 2022 is when we started our second collection of ad valorem. September 2022, we ended up collecting about 6.9 million. And we were able to get that summer funding out using some of that. And then, of course, we get down to December, we estimate we'll collect about 7.6. So we'll see where we actually end up, but I wanted to share that. Then the next thing I wanted to share is actually the handout that you have, and I'll be giving that to Holly to post for the public. But when I contemplated a revised staffing plan, I looked to the 2 CSCs that are similarly funded and similarly structured. And I pulled their budgets that were last available, which was 21. And I wanted to show you these because my expectation is that as we move into these positions, we are going to pull several of the positions into programming. So they won't be administrative positions, but rather programming positions. And they do that in both of these budgets. So if we look at Martin County's
can
first,
I stop you right there just for a second? So that we're kind of all on the same page. Because I heard this discussion, and after 2 years of being chief of staff, the Department of Education, and understanding how to make administrative costs rise and fall, depending on what you were looking for. If they are actually in the program, I don't mean evaluating the program, in the program itself, they're working with the kids, then I have no problem with them being in the as a program expense. Because they're not really an expense, an administrative expense. If their job is to evaluate the program purely as a CSC person taking data in and evaluating and then saying whether or not they met the criteria that we set, whether or not they lived up to the agreement of the contract we signed with them, then that is, break it out however you want. That is an administrative cost. That's people who are overseeing, because they wouldn't just oversee one program. That would be sort of silly and be a waste of their time. So spreading it out over the programmatic cost is really just a semantics issue. In fact, it's an administrative function that we are paying someone to do an evaluation. It would be like Sika taking your salary and breaking it off into a portion to this program, a portion to that program. That is, and I've been part of this. That is, I think, not a fair way of handling it. Keeping it simple. If they're just performing administrative functions, and I mean that it can be programmatic in terms of an evaluation, but if they're not in the program itself, delivering the services, it would be like assigning a cost across all of the programs of this table. Plain and simple, because these programs need a board that need, to approve their funding, and the board needs to sit at a table. And therefore, you could take there were 10 programs that we funded. 1/10 of the cost of this table could be assigned to each one of those. I don't think that really gets to the heart of what we're trying to do. And maybe we use a word different than administrative. But when I looked at how much money we are bringing in versus how much we are spending and what is the proposal, I think it's too much. I just do. And again, I don't care what you want to call it. I would much rather spend more money delivering direct services to kids and to families in this community than I would on additional staff. I'm not saying we don't need additional staff, but the proposal, while certainly well thought out, I'm not sure how you came up with healthcare costs. That evidently the new people don't get the same health benefits as the existing staff. But all of that aside, it's and I appreciate the fact that you use Martin County and St. Lucie County as comparisons. But guess what? We're not St. Lucie County. We're not Martin County. We're Leon County, and I think we can do it better. I think we can do it a whole lot better. Martin County and St. Lucie County, I'm sure have very capable executive directors. I think we have a more capable one. So I'm sharing that up front as a way of just kind of putting my feelings on the table. But my position in terms of number of employees that we need to run the CSC right now, ultimately 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe it gets to this. Don't think we need it now.
Thank you. And your comments are duly noted, and I appreciate you sharing them. I would like to let her finish presenting it, if you don't mind, because I want to make sure my understanding of what I describe as a programmatic person is the same as your definition. So I would, if you don't mind, Terrence, I hope you're okay.
Yeah, no,
but I would love to hear the presentation, and then we can discuss if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Please. Thank you.
So with that, I did want to provide these two budgets to show how administrative costs and operational costs are broken down for your review. The next thing, I did provide our budget just so that you could see what numbers I used when I tried to compare apples to apples.
I'm sorry. Will you please go back to this budget? Sure. And so when I look at administrative and operational here, the administrative is basically twice the amount of the operational budget, correct? And go ahead.
So in order to compare their budgets and their operational expenses to how our budget currently is done. Our budget isn't broken out the way theirs is, where they bring their programming into their programming costs. What I did in these budgets was highlight their ad valorem and all of the areas that went into this final amount that is operation related expenses.
Okay,
And so that it's apples to apples.
okay,
So their ad valorem taxes, you'll see a revenue, you'll see up there. And then when you get down on, which one are you looking at?
I'm at
Okay,
Martin
Martin
County,
County.
yeah.
And you'll see that it says the Martin County program staff. There's their amount there. I added that to their general government, which is their administration, operating, and media,
okay,
and then their collection fees. And so when you add all of that together, you get a total at the bottom of 1.7. So that is their operation related cost that is similar to the way ours is broken down.
okay. And this includes their operation and their programmatic
Yeah.
staff to put out the grants, manage the programs, making sure all of the information is, and then sharing that back with the county. Basically, it's a quick summary of, okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
their program staff, the reason they put it in program services is because that staff is only responsible for everything with these particular programs.
Okay. Okay, all right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Then when you look at St. Lucie,
Yeah,
I did the same thing. So their ad valorem revenue at the top,
Mhm.
and then their community outreach and events, that amount, added with the personnel services. So that is their, which I think it should be personnel, is their administrative staff and their program staff, which they break out as well,
okay,
and the total of that. And then along with their total operating, which are their operating expenses and contingency and their collection expenses. And you get 2.241.
then I have one other question, and I promise I'll stop asking questions. So I see the percentage of like their overall taxes to what they're spending on operations for both of them. But is the program that they're rolling out the same as our plan? So as far as the number of programs, the speed in which we want to roll them out, the summer versus like which one, how do we compare to make them similar?
It's hard to compare because both of these, one has been in existence 30 years, the other one's been in existence more than 20 years. Martin County actually started out when they were first approved with an executive director and an assistant. They were only levying 12 cents per $100,000. So they added staff as their millage rate went up. We came in at a middle millage rate and have these RFPs that we want to roll out and this accountability that we want to do. And we can't do it with just the four of us. At this point, we are not able to delineate our roles and responsibilities. We are all kind of doing a little bit of everything. We finish one meeting and we start preparing for the next. And I am just afraid if we do not look at something similar to what they're doing, that we're going to end up behind the eight ball. So their programming is different from each other and it's different from what we plan. But in my estimation, you want to bring people on ahead of your programming so that they're involved in how that programming looks. They know the RFP in and out, and they are able to work with those programs to ensure that we're getting the outcomes that we need. So definitely hear what Councilmember Mitchell is saying. And maybe it is a matter of semantics, but in my mind, just from what I studied, if they are dealing with the programs that we fund, that is a programmatic cost. It should be classified that way. Again, ultimately, the council will decide how you want it.
Thing is that everything can be then thrown into the category of programmatic. That was really my point is at some point, we just have to say either everything should be programmatic, the cost of rent, it can be a portion per program, the cost of salaries, the cost of benefits, the cost of travel, cost of you fill in the blank. It can all be assigned to a portion to a program.
But can't be defined. So we have the ability to define programmatic and administrative, right?
Yeah. Well, and that, I guess, was my point, Madam Chair, is that if we're going to do it, I would like to do it as simple as possible. That is, unless the person or the inanimate object is actually part of the program. If we are bringing someone on as staff who is, working in an after-school program as part of, then that is, to me, very much is very programmatic. But if it's reviewing it, I see that as administrative.
Okay, and I think my opinion is a little bit different, and I'd love to hear what you're thinking. So when I think programmatic, I think we are providing funding opportunities for other agencies to do that type of work, to be in the program. So I don't expect for our staff to be doing the work because they're funding other people to do it. But I do expect that our staff would draft an RFP, that they're defining the program. I do expect for them to understand, what proposals have come in and be a part of that process, know what's going on. I do expect for them to monitor the work that's being done and ensuring that what we're paying for is what's actually happening. I do expect that they would get the performance information that comes in and they could tell us, did we get our money's worth or did we waste our money with this particular? To me, that's still programmatic because they're managing the program and they are ensuring that what we are paying for is what we're actually getting. I'm defining that as programmatic work.
Can I ask you a quick
Yeah,
question?
please.
Because you said they're managing the program.
Yeah.
I completely agree with everything you said. You lost me, not that I disagree,
Yeah.
but I'm curious what your definition of
Managing.
managing the program. Are they involved in the day-to-day operation
No.
of managing?
Yeah, daily, they're paying attention to what's happening with that program. So they understand. So let me just give you an example. I live in analogies. So let's say you're a funded, you responded to an RFP and we funded you because you're going to provide this program, right? And then Terrence is on Seeker's staff, okay? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Watts is on Seeker's staff. And he needs to make sure that you are actually providing the services. He is involved with the site visits. He is getting your monthly reports, or however often we're asking for reports. He's reviewing those. He's making sure that you're spending your dollars as you're supposed to. He's making sure that you are providing the metrics that are required for the program. Because at the end of the day, the council's going to come to him and say, did Mr. Mitchell's program do what needs to happen? So to me, he's managing he's managing your program. So, and he won't just be doing you, but everybody else that's funded, he would have a load that he is responsible for. And to me, that's how I define he's managing your program.
Could I?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
Please.
so I've been overanalyzing this.
Okay, yeah.
I've talked about it, whatever makes, I would like to let her finish.
Okay.
Because, just getting through it and then we can bring all of these
Yeah.
discussion points together. I think it'll help it flow. I think it'll help,
Okay.
because I've had the same questions on both sides, and I think if you just let her go through it,
Okay. Fair enough.
okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Are you comfortable with that, Mr.?
Yeah, I read this in advance.
Yeah, I know.
There wasn't much, I just thought these were numbers and positions, so I didn't know that there was big.
Please, I'm sorry. Please continue. All right, thank you.
Okay. So I provided these so that you could see where I think we ought to be when we're breaking our budget down. So I did include a copy of our most recent budget just so that you would have that. And I wanted to delineate what figured into our operational percentage similar to the budgets that I gave you. So if you see here, what we used to do the analysis was our budgeted ad valorem revenue, which is the 7.6. And then our current salary and compensation. And then any contracted amounts, that's the highlight there. And then our other operations, which includes everything in that previous field. And so I wanted to be sure that you had that. So then the next thing I provided you was their organizational charts. And so you'll see that information there. Just to reiterate, when you look at their budget, as far as their ad valorem for 21-22, again, the 1.7, which I mentioned, which is about 17%, and their millage was at 0.36, and then their funding priorities.
And do you know how, I see the position descriptions here, but do we have a good understanding of how they manage their project? And I guess I'm trying not to use the word manage, but how do they ensure that their funded opportunities are being done appropriately?
So
Who are
their
the staff
contract
responsible?
specialists, you'll see that, their manager of planning and evaluation. Then, of course, a piece of their director of program operations. And for Martin County, they actually have a new initiative. This is a county that does a rolling funding every 3 months, and then they fund a priority every year. So they have 2 more positions that make them come to a total of 14 for their priority that is coming up this year, and it's called HIPPY. So that is how they manage theirs.
They have a total of 14 what?
14 positions.
Okay.
Full-time
Just wanted to make
positions.
sure.
Their chart doesn't show their last 2. So they have a chief executive officer, a director of program operations, a director of finance, administrative services manager, a manager of community engagement, a contract specialist. They have 2 of those, a fiscal specialist, an executive assistant who also serves in program support, manager of planning, evaluation, and community development. They have an accounts payable specialist, an admin for the front desk, and then they have a HIPPY coordinator and a HIPPY home visitor, which is their priority for this year.
Okay, they have a person designated for the priority area.
Right, so it's 14 all total.
Please continue. Thank you.
And then when you get to St. Lucie, they have 11.3 million for the last year that I had available, with a 2.2 million in operations, which is about 19%. Their millage rate is 0.47. And their funding priorities are overarching priorities, and they have programs in each of those. Excuse me. And then this is their organizational chart. So their program specialist goes into programming, both of those, a piece of their community engagement coordinator. And then under their financial officer, they've got a project specialist, a fiscal specialist, and then a fiscal and a HR specialist there. So then this is my proposed funding structure. This is my proposed structure. So we currently have, of course, the executive director and the administrative services manager. We're proposing adding an admin assistant, which would be no fiscal impact to us because it would be through AARP. Then we already have our special programs manager there, which is a contract position. We already have our director of finance and operations and our program accountability and research manager. I am proposing that we add a community relations specialist. That person would be responsible, and I can already hear Mr. Mitchell, but that person would be responsible for community outreach, volunteer coordination and recruitment, as well as the communications piece. One of the things about our messaging is we are not able to do a whole lot of that because we can't focus on it. And having been in that position myself, it is vitally important in my mind that we have someone that focuses specifically on our outreach, our volunteer recruitment, and our communications. And that's what that position would do. And then I am proposing 3 program and quality assurance specialists. And the very next slide, I think, is the summary of the job descriptions. And then an HR and fiscal assistant. So this is the description of the positions we already have. You guys know this. I don't need to go through that. And then these would be summary of the positions that I am proposing. So community relations, it's the awareness of our initiatives, our programs, and our funding, planning and managing all of our outreach events, including our participation in external events, which we get a lot of requests for that. Supports internal and external communication through an approved communications plan, something that's been on our radar, but we have not been able to finish. Manage and updates our website, our social media, including content, handles the media and press relations, manages and creates our newsletter and our TV channel, our YouTube TV channel that we want to do, and is the primary contact for our public records requests. The piece that's missing from here, and it was just my omission, is the volunteer coordination. So that includes when we talk about getting volunteer evaluators, making sure that portal is up, getting all of that information in, as well as volunteers that the community can use as well. We get requests all the time for volunteers if we have that kind of bank. So that position would do that as well and answer to the ED.
So Sika, the community relations specialist would handle public records requests. So would that person be then responsible for letting the board know that a public records request had been made, not just of the council, but specifically on each one of the council members?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
So that's what we would
So if someone
hire
comes,
somebody to do that.
if you get a public records request.
No. If you get a public records
Right.
request on me
Yes,
or on Dr. Glenn
yes,
or on Mr. Watts,
yes,
that person would handle it and let the council members know that a public records request had been made on that.
yes, and help with pulling that information in. So if we get a request for, we want to see Paul Mitchell's text messages with Xandra, which there aren't any, but that's what they want to see. So they would work with you to screenshot those and get those in so that we can turn those in. Then our program and quality assurance specialists, I'm proposing 3 of those. So they would facilitate and coordinate our community investment partner engagement, relations, and training, assist with the development and management and preparation and implementation of the funding cycles. They would be the contract manager for their assigned programs, the execution and compliance, and the funds distribution. Assist with the application and evaluation process, monitor the performance according to the programs, and that includes the compliance with contract deliverables and participant outcomes, manage and perform on-site program reviews and audits, performs the initial review of the submitted fiscal and programmatic reports, maintain program and provider files with the record retention policies and state law, and they would report to the DFO. And then fiscal and human resources. So they will perform the fiscal and human resource duties. There we go. And work.
Can I ask a question as we go along specific to this? I gotta get the need for someone looking at quality assurance. That, Dr. Glenn, to your point, that's essentially what you described. I'm not at all against that. I'm supportive of it. So they're going to report to the director of finance and operations and not the program accountability and research manager.
Yes.
So, okay, so and maybe we skipped over it because you said, you know what they do. Isn't that what the program accountability and research manager does is essentially quality assurance?
Well, we're going to augment, I guess I need to come back. So we're going to augment that a little bit. So our program accountability and research manager, who is very, very capable, would perform the research-based and data-driven funding justifications and documentation for funding, ensures the CIP adherence to the data collection. So we'll be working with a program specialist. But at this time, I I am more comfortable with the program specialist reporting to the DFO, given that particular team member's previous experience in program operations. So that is strictly what I want to do. And I'd like for our program accountability and research manager to continue in what she's been doing, which is really researching the data points, the evaluation points, all of that information on the programs.
Okay, so when I looked at this, and I'm truly not trying to be argumentative. This was going through my brain. I read the job description of program accountability and research manager. Again, not the people we want, the quality assurance based on their background, but I'm looking at her job description and I'm thinking to myself, what
So
documentation for
What are they doing?
funding decision? Again, I want to make sure that no matter what, regardless of how the other members of the council decide to vote on this issue, that the discussion has been fully vetted and we all have all of the facts in front of us. And you know that you and I disagree on the need for the numbers. So put that aside. The need for positions, we don't disagree on. I just want to know what each one of them is doing so that when I say, while I'm not supportive of all of these, I am supportive of all but these two, or all but this one. And I just want to make sure I understand it. And as I read, I mean, you sent it to us on Saturday afternoon. I waited for the final one to come in. I sat down and I read everything. And then I read it again. And I know this might come as a shock to you. I read it a third time because there were some confusing points for me. And I'm trying to wrap my brain around not St. Lucie and not Martin County, but Leon County. And what do we need here to administer programs to serve kids and families? And that's really, that's where I'm heading when I ask these questions. If we hired a program accountability and research manager who didn't have the experience necessary to manage quality assurance specialists, program and quality assurance specialists, I scratch my head and say, why?
But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is initially, I would like for those three to report to the DFO because I know of her experience in program operations. As we move into this, because this is still new for all of us, then we can switch that reporting structure. Our PARM is still getting her feet wet in the research and accountability and evaluation piece. So I just feel like as the ED, I have the ability, I hope, to create that reporting structure. And then as we get deeper into it, people become more comfortable, then we can switch it and start moving people under the manager.
I'm honestly, one final thing, I'm not looking for, I do think you have the authority as the ED to do that. And that is not something that I am trying to insert my will for yours. I am asking the questions because I will have the vote on the final decision.
Absolutely.
And I'm just letting you know that on paper, as I read it, and I heard your explanation, and I'll digest it. On paper, it didn't make any sense to me, so that's why I asked the question.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question for you. So, all right, thank you for breaking that out for me, which was very helpful for me to hear you describe it. Give me a daily application for what the program accountability and research manager would do.
So I can tell you what she does now is completely research accountability measures for all of these programs and the strategic framework that we are proposing. So we're doing that on Thursday. When we show you the strategic framework for family support services, there are one-page justifications for each one of those. That is work that she specifically has done to create the justifications, to create and show the need, not only from the needs assessment, but from the research that she's done and talking with other similar, not programs, but similar priorities in other counties, as well as the information that is available out there, talking with experts, all of that, and then developing the quality measures that that program would be measured, how we measure that. Then once that is done, looking at how we evaluate that program. So coming up with those evaluation measures. So that is the daily ins and outs at this point,
That's helpful. So basically, helping to build a strategy
helping to build a
that
strategy.
goes to the programs committee and then the evaluation basically of the programs.
Yes,
In my mind, that's totally different than how I see the
The
managing the programs, right? Okay, no,
Yes.
that's good. Because I wasn't, when I read this too, I wasn't quite exactly sure what they did. So I wanted that practical example. Thank you.
and my apologies for
No, it's
not
okay.
making that
No, it's-
clearer, more clear.
But that's helpful. Okay, any other questions before we let her finish this one page? Okay, did you want to talk at all about what you have on the compensation?
Yes. So I think I have the admin assistant there. But again, that's no cost to us and they will be under the direction of the,
What, just, I did not, I mean, I saw it at the ARP and I was like, well, this must just be something I don't know anything about. The ARP, this is going to,
yeah, so AARP, they have a program where seniors who want to work. I say seniors and I'm an AARP.
right.
So, but that want to work,
50 and older.
just finding placement for them, but they pay for them. So they would be placed with us, but
Where-
AARP pays them.
Is there a state fund or a federal fund that reimburses ARP?
Not that I know of. We were,
I'm just curious.
yeah, we were made aware of the program. And it's a part of AARP seniors who still want to work. Have no idea where they get that funding. From where they get that funding, but they would be an employee
Okay.
of AARP placed with us.
And have you spoken to them to confirm? Okay. perfect.
Yes,
All right,
and
thank
we
you.
are eligible.
Okay.
We actually kind of started the paperwork on that. Yeah, we just wanted,
I'd never heard of it. That's where.
kind of like well,
It is, that's where
kind of like AmeriCorps
that
for
is where
seniors.
my
Yeah.
brain went.
Okay. Anything else you want to share before we? Oh,
No,
okay.
that was it. This is pretty much self-explanatory. I will tell you the health insurance actually got from actual numbers from what we're doing now. So that wasn't a guesstimation. And the only thing that is vacant is the disability insurance because it's part of our package with Leon County. And we are still in the process of getting that information together. And so you'll see this here. And so for a total impact of 874. And so currently we are at 18.4, and this would take us to 23.0. I will say that while I know that CHSP isn't necessarily the benchmark, I did look to them as far as what they require of their applicants, and their applicants cannot go over a 25% admin, whatever, and they have to show what goes into that admin. So even at this staffing level, we're underneath that. And then we would also be able to reduce some of the costs that are currently in our budget. So if we are able to get our fiscal and HR, we can take that payroll that we're paying paychecks back down to just doing the payroll because that position would be responsible for our HR things, our training, our manuals, leave, all of that. Public relations we could take out because that would then be the responsibility of the community relations specialist. AmeriCorps Vista would go away because we have a community relations person. And then grant writing, we have that in there, but I don't think we're ready for that. And so I would propose as we look at a budget amendment, maybe taking that out at this point because we're not ready to go look for grants. I don't think that's what we should be doing. at this point. So that is really all I have, and am ready to answer any questions.
Go ahead. I have questions, but I'll defer.
No, I'm totally happy with it.
Okay, do you have any questions immediate?
I got a lot of stuff. I have a few things.
You have a few questions?
But I want, are you, you were gonna?
As long as we're on, yes. So, it's a guy I put together the package for the executive director. And it is very consistent with, what my intent was when we hired Ms. Green, including, $40,000 a year to, her retirement. I struggle with a couple of things, and in this case, I am, channeling, Ms. McFadden, because she talks about the, Family Medical Leave Act, right? And that if we are going to sort of walk the walk or talk the talk, we better walk the walk. I was struck by, if you're going to put together a budget on health insurance and providing health insurance, we've provided the best of the best to the top with, and it's in our budget for 3 quality assurance people individual. It's actually not even. It, again, because I represent the 2 plans that offer health benefits in Leon County. The $6,600, one is an individual, not a family, which we're offering to the other employees. I assume that this is the breakdown. So the $6,600 probably not a good number to use, or not a fair number if we're going to treat our employees as close to being equal as possible. And I don't know why a program quality assurance specialist would somehow sort of only qualify for an individual coverage if they had a family and they would be the sole bread.
So can I just, one thing?
Sure.
I was just using an estimate, so I just used the single price. I didn't use the.
But if we're going to come up with your magic 23% and we're keeping it under 25%, because that's what what you're touting. One, that all of these numbers need to be filled out and filled out accurately. And I don't think they are right now, based on what would be my desire. I mean, this is, I know, I was surprised that I believe in spending more. I'm more of a quality over a quantity person. I think, again, the reason I advocated the way I did when we hired Sika to begin with was I wanted her to be treated like a senior manager. Listen, most people had a privately can't. What the heck? That's the way we should treat our employees. And I do. I can hear Ms. McFadden talk about the Family Medical Leave Act, right? And I thought, she's right. She's absolutely right. So when you set a budget, you don't set it on the low number, on the low end. You set it where it is probably going to end up. And I'm not saying that I guess we could shoot for hiring nothing but single people,
Well,
but then that would
I
be
would
discriminatory
have to, yeah.
against. That's my point, is that most people that we would hire in Leon County are family, and they tend to be, especially in positions like this. I'm not saying they all will be the earner of the family, but I think we need to prepare for it. And I don't think that setting a $6,000 a year budget for each of those 3, while yes, it keeps our number below 25%, I don't think it's realistic.
So let me just say, I wasn't trying to.
See, I wasn't suggesting.
No.
I'm just trying to get to that.
No. It's just for the record because we're recording. I wasn't trying to keep it under 20. It just happened to fall under 25%. And I used the single because that's just the one I used. And that is clearly my mistake. I
It's
wasn't.
vague. I'm just saying we should, when we're talking about things like this, again, I don't know how, when I sit down and do a family budget, I don't plan on things being the least expensive. I kind of find a happy medium. So it might be that, of however many positions, and again, then the next executive director who comes in may be a single man. So we don't have to provide a family. So it's not necessarily the position. I'm talking about if you have so many positions, maybe doing a quarter of them single, 3/4 of them married, and providing for a family coverage. It's just, again, I don't know what the magic number is,
I think that's based on your experience, which I'm glad that you're bringing to the table. So thank you. What I'm hearing from you is a request to redo this budget based on a little bit more of reality of where we would probably land with regards to the health insurance, putting in, like he said, mix it up, and then to add the family leave, which we definitely, I remember Ms. McFadden making that point, and so we could build that part in. So I'm hearing a request, please redo this. He's wanting this to be redone. Okay, I see you looking at me.
Yeah,
but
because
it's
I'm
because-
trying to see.
well, also the
Because-
disability insurance, like full. I mean, again,
Well-
before the.
add those values in. So instead of doing all single, mixing them up so that we have where we will most likely land in a imperfect world, and then adding in the family leave, which we added in prior to, so it should be included in this package also, is what I'm hearing. You were about to say something, Mr. Watts.
So I have been thinking,
Yeah,
and I'm glad you used the word experience.
yeah, right.
Because I think we're all
Learning
to
this.
make decisions or have opinions based on our background experience. So I can tell you, many meetings ago, when it first came up, my original opinion towards exit position was like, no, you don't need them.
Yeah.
That's my own, from my own personal
Right.
experience, right? Just getting started. But just hearing more information, and I watched the program services committee, so that you have an up on that because you're on that committee.
Yeah.
So watching the last two program services committee, especially you guys who said that was recommendation was coming from the program services committee about the positions. So that helped me to get closer to understanding possibly the need for the additional positions, because I may be have been guilty of making this assumption that you all have enough right now to, make an impact. But I may have assumed wrong, and I'm sure I've assumed wrong that clearly, like last week I was at an event and Stephanie was your communications. Stephanie was communications person at the event. So I never want to put myself in a position assuming that you all are doing 40 hours a week when you might be doing more. So you may have a better opportunity to kind of educate, if to present more like, hey, we are, and again, if I don't see that, then I don't know it. And so I leave that up to you all to really paint that picture to kind of help better inform, my position. And so I went back, and when that article came out, I went back and looked at St. Lucie. I pulled up St. Martin, looked at their website and structures and things. But then I too saw that they've been in operation for 30 and something years. So I want to bring this up about what I heard from the Program Services Committee, the second to the last one. And it looks like from that discussion that and you've heard Superintendent Rocky kind of bring up too, like, why aren't we getting enough funds out? We have these funds, why aren't we getting them out on the street? And so from that discussion, that was very helpful. So I made notes because I wanted to make sure I can make the meeting as effective as possible and not keep us here till 10 o'clock.
Awesome, thank you.
But this is what I got from that one. There's $10 million budget and we spent about $5 million. Okay. And then this is something Councilmember Jones asked was, do we have the staff? Does the size of staff have something to do with you all putting money on the street? It's the question he's posing to seeking our opinion. And I like this response, see, because this was helpful. It said this, the size of staff, you didn't say yes. What you said was the size of staff has something to do with managing the RFP, managing programming. So this is going to go back to these descriptions, right? Managing monitoring and managing distribution. Okay, so then that helps me get closer to, okay, now I'm putting the pieces together that clearly that those are some significant responsibilities that I don't know that the current structure will be able to do that with getting 10 million out, right? Okay, so this is what I heard Jones say was program administration from his own experience. Was that program administration is its own set of responsibilities as well as monitoring. And then I heard Liza say or recommend that she'd like to get the 10 million out by September 30th. And then I heard Liza recommend and Jones that they bring back a staffing plan and schedule, right? So this is their viewpoint. Then I heard Liza suggesting, I tried to Google this to see, but you almost need one person for every $1 million. So I don't know, and so I would want to know more about that. But this is helping me to get closer to understand how you all can really get the programs out. And we always talk about when we have the people come and present metrics. Like, it's great to hear, and see the PowerPoint and, but like, okay, we want to know metrics. I served this many, you guys gave us this much, we served this much, this was the outcome. And in my mind, I'm envisioning that these program services people, this is things that they would be ongoing, tracking, monitoring. Maybe they have those questions or already have this information prepared or presented when they have this. So this is where my mind's going, right? And so, I looked at so we're focused on success in school and life, healthy children, youth and families, stable, nurturing families and community. And so, Sika, a question for you. The program specialists and quality assurance, right? So the three you have, because I was almost like, all this, I was like, I don't know if you need 3 is enough. Maybe you get rid of the communication person, you get a 4th one. I feel like that is likely the meat and potatoes, possibly, if I'm understanding the vision correctly, the meat and potatoes to really hold the folks that we are funding accountable. Like when I think about the ELC, and I was thinking about this when they were presenting, I was like, you really need someone almost that is checking in, like, that can't be you.
No, that's the
And so,
quality.
so you really need someone that can do that. And I can't, so so the program specialist.
So,
Go ahead. Let me
so can
pause.
I jump in?
Yeah,
So, yes, to all of that. A program specialist, so I recommended 3.
Mhm.
They would literally each become specialists in the pieces. In my mind, they would separate out according to ages and grades. So they become the specialists in that for services for that particular age or grades. But I envision that they're probably in this office, maybe 2 days a week. The other 3 days, they are out at those programs. They are watching, they are seeing, they are looking at what they're doing. They're looking at their data, helping them tweak, referring them to capacity and technical assistance if they need that. So they really become the CSC liaison with all of our CIPs, with our community investment partners. They know them by name. They know who's working in that program. And as more programs come along, those programs are moved under whichever program specialist it fits best. So if it's, I'll use the ELC program as a perfect example, that would be under the program specialist that is doing birth to age 8. So that would be birth to 3rd grade. So that program specialist is the one that's interfacing with Liz that can come back and say, listen, we've got, if they got about 100 more families, they can get eligible. If we can do the money, okay, so now we know what we need to do to bring to you all to get more money in that program. So they are really the ones that are interfacing with our CIPs
And can
on a
I,
regular basis.
I think what's really missing from your presentation, because honestly, I felt like you at first when I looked at the three and I was like, I don't know if three is gonna be enough. And I know your opinion was totally different, but it's because I saw the strategy, like what y'all plan to roll out and when. And I knew that was a lot of work for a small amount of people. And so immediately my mind was, they're gonna need a lot of people to be able to manage everything that we want. And would it have been helpful for you all to see the strategy first? Like, this is what, and I know y'all looked at it before, but like my dad always say, you gotta say it 7 times before people understand it. But this is the plan. This is how we plan to roll out these different funding opportunities. This is the timeline. This is what we expect to get on the street. And once you understand what the load is, then would it be sensible to have a conversation with, this is the staff that's required to manage that load? Would that have been helpful?
I want it to be fair to the staff. So this is why it's like, maybe it's my responsibility to go back and watch the program servicing me, or I could go. Would that be helpful to then just have information presented to me? I'm gonna be selfish and say yes, but I mean, ultimately the information was there.
But
So
you're not, I can guarantee you, and I love my council members, but everybody's not aware of that. And I don't think they're gonna take the time to watch the videos. But I think that if you are going to present this, they need to understand why there is a need for additional staff.
mhm. Can I, let me, pause for a second. And so that's where I'm leading. It was very helpful to hear from, Liza and, Councilmember Jones in that meeting to get a better, viewpoint. But I want to go back to Mr. Mitchell, which is, the first question he brought up about the admin, versus program, because I don't understand that. And so again, I believe we're all on the same page that we want to be accountable for the decisions that we approve and the resources. So are you stating that in order for these positions to be considered as programmatic, that how they're currently described now is not, I'm gonna use the word kosher?
So I'm gonna answer your question. It may take me a second to get there. The Florida Department of Education right now draws down federal funds. And they create with those federal funds something that are called PC&G, Project Contract and Grant positions. Those positions are responsible for overseeing the funds that the federal government allowed them to draw down. There's an agreement between the federal government and the state of Florida that the state of Florida can take 18% of those federal funds and manage, monitor, and evaluate and report back to the federal government the results of the programs that they funded. 18%. As the chief of staff, at the time working for an elected education commissioner, so we had a great deal more authority than the current structure. 18% was funny money, plain and simple. There was no way you needed 18%. And by the way, the Florida Department of Education is well staffed. I don't think anybody says, God, we need more positions over there. Now, so that's 18%. Dr. Glenn, you made a comment that I don't think we need more positions in quality assurance. That is not how I feel. I don't think we need as many positions to run the CSC as Sika's proposal suggests. I think that we should focus heavily as I don't know that I agree that we should do it by age and grade, only because many of these programs go from, birth, probably not birth, but we'll say pre-K to 12. some of the programs. I don't think we should break it down, but I think we should do it by program. Or by policy, however you want to do it. But I like the idea that they would spend 2 days a week actually crunching the numbers and 3 days a week in the community, visiting and analyzing, but also there, you know, there's the kind of regulators that go out to find all that is wrong. And all you have to simply do is say, hey, by the way, just pick that up. You know, there's Legos on the floor, kids are going to trip over them or step on, just pick up the Legos. You can actually stop the accident before it happens, right? So I like the idea of putting people in the community. I would just say a couple points. We don't have a $10 million a year budget. Okay? Plain and simple. We have about a $7.5 million a year budget. And we spend a good portion of that already. We just approved a $290,000 contract. We spent $300,000 on a needs assessment. We have rent. We have a budget that no matter if we didn't fund one program, is going to continue to exist. So I don't really care what percentage we get to. I just don't want to lie to ourselves and say that this isn't about an administrative cost. I don't care. I mean, at the end, I don't really care. I'm fine. Call it whatever you want to call it, programmatic. Again, that means, and there are some departments of education that do this. Every pencil they purchase, a portion of it goes to a program. Plain and simple. I mean, they don't do it by pencil, but they do it by supplies. It's fine. So we could have an administrative cost of $0. What I'm saying is, how much does it cost if we didn't fund one single program, okay, but we had all of the people that we are looking to hire? How much does that cost? That to me is an administrative cost.
In my mind, I don't think we need to define administrative and programmatic. I don't think we do. What I want to know is, based on our strategic plan to provide services based on our priority within the community, what does it take to get what we want from those programs? So I want to know, what is our plan? What are we focusing on? How many of these things are we rolling out? And then I want, on the other hand, say, for each one of those, we need to have this, and this, because we have to be accountable for those dollars, and we have to be accountable to show that these programs are effective. So we need to have this information. Then my question to Sika would be, what does it take for us to get what we need for those programs based on our strategy? And that's where I think is the missing link from this conversation, because I think that if the council members understand this is our strategy, this is our timeline, here is what we are guaranteeing we're going to get from these programs, then this is what we need to be able to manage it. Then I can honestly say, I agree, we need 3 program of quality, because I know what those people are going to do. And then we could lay the foundation. We could say, our expectation is that they're not sitting in a corner office somewhere 5 days a week, kind of looking at something if they want to. Our expectation is that they are on the ground on these sites 3 days a week. I think we have the ability to do that. So that's why I was hesitant to say, I don't think this works. I don't know if it works, because everybody needs to be clear on what our plan is, what our expectations is, and then reasonably, how is that going to happen? Does that make sense?
That makes
Yeah.
great sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Watts mentioned that Stephanie was out as the comms person. This is a new organization. Imagine a startup in the private sector. Guess what?
Yeah.
You do a little of everything. And if you didn't know that coming in, shame on you. It's a startup.
Absolutely.
If you didn't know that coming in, so you just happen to be in my line. The idea is looking at the property owners of the county of Leon County and saying to them, we have imposed a 0.375 millage rate on your property for every dollar that it's valued at, which continues to go up.
Mhm.
With that, you hold us, non-elected, only appointed officials in this capacity, hold us accountable. If you've given us $7.5 million, and we are spending, $1.5 million or more on what I'll call fixed costs. Maybe that's better than administrative costs, because I'm not really hung up on, administrative versus programmatic. Please don't get me, I'm like, but I just kind of want to call BS on myself if that's like, what would this cost? When we, at the end of the day, the commitments that we are about to make or are making, have already, what happens with the CSC if we don't fund one program? So you don't have to worry about the programmatic side. How much money are we spending?
I'm there. And you talk about the startup. This was my original bias because you come from the world. I come from the world where whether you got the positions or not, there are federal things that need to occur. And you, as a manager, make the decisions of what can be sacrificed and what cannot. Would I have loved to say, give me 20 extra positions? Absolutely. But chances of me getting them. So that was my bias of.
DCF, should.
Okay, yeah, so this is my bias of originally when the conversation was just like, it's a startup. But I have arrived at a space now where when do you kick over into supporting that, are they equipped with the staff right now to meet these objectives and these themes that we consistently hear come up? And so that's where, and that's where I'm closer to just listening to the other folks with experience on the program services committee. That helped me get closer. So that's where I am, is where do you cross over from, okay, yeah, startup, and hey, everybody might be a workaholic. I'm not, do 90 hours or whatever. How do you switch over responsibly to
And that's
give-
why.
okay.
That's where you are. And that's why I'm proposing that the next time we see this, it's not just this plan. This is what our game plan is. I think that needs to be the beginning of the conversation. This is what we plan to do with rolling out the funding opportunities with these programs. And this is our timeline. And this is the accountability of our staff. This is what we expect the staff to do. And then the question would reasonably be, how much staff does it take to do both of those things in a timeline that's reasonable? And I think I think you should also say, I can do this with 3, but if y'all bump me down to 2, okay, then here's what you're gonna get. I mean, I think that's reasonable. And then if you bump me down to 1, here's what you're gonna get. And I think we need to make a decision. Can we live with the 1? Can we live with the 2? Or do we need the 3? And I think that's how we make the transition. Mr. Watts, we need to understand what they can reasonably do at those different levels, and we make a decision based on it.
So can I add
Please,
something?
yes.
I think part of the problem with that, I agree with it, but I think part of the problem is we haven't even gotten through the whole strategic framework that we proposed. So we've got one program out of early learning,
Right.
high quality early learning. We'll be presenting family support services on Thursday. Then we won't even look at prenatal until the next program services meeting, which is in March.
But we still have a timeline. Like, we know when we plan to roll out these programs, right? I've seen a timeline,
Yes,
okay?
yes. So we have a timeline of RFPs, which was presented to the program services committee. And that's how the whole conversation came up about there only being 4.5 million.
But everybody hasn't seen that timeline. I think that if everybody clearly understands, this is the timeline of what we plan to do, and you see where we are. I mean, you know how long it took us to get to the family supports So, I mean, you know.
Listen, I
I know you never wanted
understand,
to
I totally, I just don't want to end up in a place where you all have approved all this stuff and we don't have staff to do it.
Okay. Please.
How many quality assurance people did you put on some? Sorry.
We didn't have them. We had none,
We spent 1.6 million. Did not.
but it was a quick RFA that,
A quick RFA, that was just getting, I'm saying the quality assurance, that's after the RFA, that's after the award. And I believe me, I support your position that however many we need to bring them in as part of the RFA process, that they're very informed, they understand kind of what the program they're about to monitor is. Now, by the way, people leave jobs and come into jobs, so there's, you know, but I support doing it the right way at the very beginning. Again, I struggle. This proposal shows 6 new people, 5 of which are paid for. And I say, well, let's see. We were able to spend 1.6 million. And again, do the math, you guys. 7.5 million coming in. Let's just say we spend 2 million in fixed costs, whatever you want to call that, right? Assign it out however you want. I don't care what you call it. It's more than 2 million, but let's say that's what it is. What you're talking about is spending around $5 million a year on programs. So how many people does it take to make sure that we have quality assurance built in so that the council knows that for the $5 million we've spent, we got $5,001 worth of product back. That's really what we're talking about at the end of the day. And what the answer is, as I look at it, is what we have now plus 6 more, only 5 of which we have to pay for. Some, by the way, we take an ARP, there's another program in Leon County that doesn't get it. My guess is there's plenty, but I'm just saying what you're saying is that we spent 1.6 million to spend 3.4 million more. This is what we need.
Okay.
And I struggle that
I hear that.
a year from now, I may say, you know what? Yes, I think we probably do need, another quality assurance person. And I actually like all of these positions to be entitled quality assurance people, because to Mr. Watts's point, that's where I think our job is to get the money out to deserving grant recipients and monitor what they do and, assure the community that their money is being wisely spent. So.
Oh, no, I thought you were gonna say.
No, I was, but I don't
Okay.
know what I was gonna say.
How, here's the other thing I looked at is, I don't know why, but I went back to your performance evaluation, your expectations. And that's almost like a lot of the expectations that I think we'll be evaluating you on, right? Ties into some of these position descriptions. And so, Mr. Mitchell, even with the 1.6 that went out with the current team, right? I think we can all, and this is not negative. I think we can all say there were, from that experience, from the presentation, there was more opportunities, right? For us to have more metrics, know more details, oversight. So how do we get when? I don't know how that measure. I don't know the measuring point for that, but like I say, I am 100% closer to the supporting this just based on the other folks' experiences. I just don't, you say, a year from now is the time. I don't know, based on what I've observed, that they have the manpower to accomplish what we want, what we're expecting from them with their current team.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
If we want,
There were gaps in what we did for the summer based on the current funding staff. I mean, we don't know a lot of things. And I do think if they had an assigned quality assurance person program of quality assurance, we would have had more insights.
I'm only using. the
Oh, okay.
number Says, I'm not suggesting that we duplicate that in fairness. The number of people we, to Sika's point, 0. It was, we all accepted that the summer funding initiative was to get the ball rolling and that nothing would be perfect. Yeah, I'm not opposed to a quality assurance person. That's not what we have in front of us. What we have in front of us is 3 quality assurance people, a community relations specialist, and an HR and fiscal specialist, all funded by taxpayer dollars. And the AARP person aside, so I won't put him or her into the mix. That just seems excessive to me, again, based on. It just seems excessive to me. And maybe, Dr. Glenn, to your point, I looked at the timeline. I haven't looked at a recent one. So, maybe I'll be, overwhelmed. And I didn't go back and watch the videos of the, of the program committee. Having said that, I did see the old one, and I saw the one where, where Superintendent Hanna got frustrated. He's like, so, what you're saying is you want more positions so we can get, these programs out. And in that meeting that I was at, the answer was yes. I like you, like Sika's answer at that meeting that I haven't watched the video of. But now that I know it's there,
Of course.
count on it.
Yeah.
I will. I'm just telling you how I feel as just one member of the team, and I'm getting used to being on the short end of the voting. But by the way, I run 3 agencies. I know what it's like to have the proper number of staff members, and I know what it's like to have too many. Candidly, too few.
Yeah.
So I don't have a good feeling as to what the magic number is, but I don't think that we need to fund 5 more positions to run this operation.
What I do think is we need more information to be able to come to that decision, because I don't think we know, I can't sit here today and say, I know for a fact we need 3 program quality. I don't know that. I do think we need a community relations person, because I really see a need for that in the work that we do. But I do think that if the full team, the full council was able to see the plan, look at the timeline, look at what the expectations are, then we could make a better informed decision that based on these, this is what we think it's going to take to be able to do it. And I think just presenting this is not going to be enough information. That's all I'm proposing.
So how do you, okay, totally get that. I'm trying to figure out how do we do that when we're working through each one of those strategic frameworks individually. So the one that the council will see on Thursday, there are 5 pieces to the framework, all of which have procurement. So that's 5 RFPs that need to get RFPs, ITNs that need to get out by August of this year.
Well,
We can't do it with
I'm
But they
thinking,
need to see that.
who we have. Understood.
Yeah, they need to
So
see that to
so then-
understand that.
So I assume this came up in the Program Services Committee, so I apologize for making you repeat it. What are those 5 procurement instruments that we're talking about? And how much money are we? Because by the way, I don't my budget. I mean, I don't know what dollar amount is being tossed about. I know we've spent $250,000. I think that we don't need a full-time person to provide quality assurance that the Early Learning Coalition is working with up to 505 families, and for 1 month paying for them to get quality child care. So I think there's 250,000. this next one is,
So family support services, we are proposing 5 strategies. So family resource centers, 1.2 million. Parent education and family strengthening and economic support services, 600,000. Behavioral health services, 1.2 million. Mentoring programs between 400 and 600. We've got to recalculate that number according to what we're seeing in the community. And then looking at non-traditional childcare, we have 600,000, but we think it's going to be more than that. So that's where we are as far as those 5 strategies under family support services, all with procurements out by by August.
and the total on that is
4 million.
4 million of a $5 million budget, essentially.
Mhm.
So that's basically everything.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I watched that one, right? So I almost feel like possibly, and you all came up with that almost possibly on the premises that this was gonna likely be in the works, or are you saying that you can do that with your current staff?
We came up with this hoping that we would get some more staff. We're not gonna be able to do this definitely on what we have now.
And that council, that program service committee, you were there, a majority of you all were in that one.
Yeah.
So, I will say, this, I don't know if that, I think that, and everybody, my take from watching that, everybody was on board with that plan. I looked at it again today, it's in the
We have a
packet.
few augmentations.
Yeah. And so, that also helped me get closer to.
Like I said, I'm a no.
But Chris,
I'm a no, and a no for
but you're
good
no,
reason.
but you don't have all the
But I,
information. That's
here's what I do know.
okay.
What I know is you're talking about $5 million. And you're saying that we were able to spend 1.6 million with 5 people, and now we need an additional 5 people to spend twice again that. I really struggle with a dollar amount that the very first meeting I attended, and Mr. Watts, you were not there, but I talked about the fact that I wanted this to be the Children's Services Council and not the Adult Employment Services Council. When you're spending this much in salaries and benefits to provide services to families who are desperately in need of things, I promise you, they're not real worried about whether or not someone who's making $85,000 a year, for them, that's exceptional. Oh, and by the way, all their healthcare paid for and life insurance and retirement. That's my point. This is about how do we make the most of what they've given us? And to me, you do it by taking each one of the current positions we have and asking them to worry about quality assurance. Dumping it all on 3 people?
But Mr. Mitchell, I'm not proposing that we approve this wholeheartedly. What I'm asking is that we see the plan
Right.
and we see what is attached to that plan, and then we make an informed decision, because I think it is too premature to say we don't need this, because honestly, we don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying we don't need any of this.
Okay.
I,
But we have no idea if we need 1, 2, 3. We don't know. We just don't know. And so I don't want to say, I think it's too much, because we don't know. And I don't want to say, oh my goodness, they don't have enough staff. We just don't know. And I'm thinking we should just wait until we have the information that we have to make an informed decision. That's my point.
I'm good waiting. I am. I really good waiting.
I think if we, I wanted to just add something to you, Mr. Mitchell, which is, what they were able to accomplish before. But what these, in my mind, what this will do is now possibly take us
The next level.
to the next level. And so that would be my reason is take this to the next level of, when we have somebody come in here with a presentation, like, when your point about the ELC, no, not once a month, but that is one of the most potential impactful things that we have going right now. And in my mind, that person wouldn't be once a month. That person would absolutely need to be boots on the grounds, that if enrollment is low, what are they providing technical assistant ELC to make sure that that information is getting out to the community? How are they so that does not fail, not using that lightly, but that, so that would be whoever manages that person, but their assignment would be.
So we would be asking a quality assurance person to go to the ELC and say, your core mission, we know better,
Not necessarily that we know better, but we're here to support. We're funding, this is our partnership. And so if we are checking in that we have these milestones that we are looking to be accomplished, right? And for whatever reason, we're not close to the milestone, like holding that accountable would make it happen.
Yeah, maybe in my mind, I'm going ELC, it's kind of cut and dry. It's funding 1 month for one child. So it's probably not a good example because that's real simple. Just check the box. Did a kid go into, they already have pre-approved quality childcare, services in Leon County. So it's either yes or no, if it's quality, then the answer is yes. They're on the ELC list. And did the family receive, the 1 month of fees for a child care?
Right.
It's less labor intensive than most of the programs that I think will be funding. So that's why I said I'm not sure it's a fair example. And no one in this building has the knowledge to go to the ELC and say, oh, I see your, because again, this is just the funding, period, only the funding, not whether or not we have enough providers, it's so.
Yeah.
But I think most of the programs fall into the category that you're talking about, which is more labor intensive.
Mhm.
Again, I'm not a hell no to every position. I just, and Dr. Glenn, you're right. I'm not going to know until we have more information. But I will tell you this, I have a lot of experience. Not every single, dog is the same. Some like to be walked early in the morning, some mid-morning. I get that. I've done this and I've done it a lot and I've done it with billions of dollars. Not.
And I value that. I do. I honestly value that. And I hear you speaking from experience, but but everybody doesn't have that experience, and to get everybody to that page, I think they need to understand what it is that we're asking of these people to make an informed decision. So not to slight you in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it's just, I feel as if she were to come to the full council with this presentation as is, they're not going to get it. And I do think the immediate assumption will be, well, we don't know. We don't have enough. So that's why I'm asking for more information so they have a fuller picture so that it could be a more informed decision as they made it. And then I do want to make one other recommendation. I do also feel to what Mr. Mitchell said, I don't know if I'm completely comfortable with having these specialists attached to age groups, but I would like a specialist attached to a strategy area or an area of focus, a priority area, because if there's anything related to that topic, family supports or early education, I want to know who's the specialist that we know has expertise in that area. They know what services are out there. They know how our people are performing, I want to be able to go to that person, not at an age, but on a topic of, so if you can consider that, and I'm not, demanding that, but,
Well, I would just ask that, again, this is new.
okay,
And just to have the ability to set it the way that would make sense
Okay.
with the procurements going out.
Okay.
That's all I ask with that. Instead of saying, we'll do it this way or that way, let's see how the procurements fall out, the talent that we end up with, and how best to. Because initially, that's what I thought. I want one for this, one for this, and one for that. Then talk through and think through, maybe not.
okay,
So just to have the ability to let that part unfold the
absolutely.
way that
Yeah.
makes sense instead of.
And I'm not opposed to that at all. I mean, I do believe that experience, as you do it, you learn as you go along. But my immediate response was, wow, I just saw it, based expertise on a program as opposed to a cost. So just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, what I'm hearing is that we are not making a decision today. But we do expect that this would go to the council so that the council can see the plan and understand. I think at least my recommendation, I don't want to speak for the other council members, but my recommendation is that as it's presented to them, they have to be able to see what the strategic plan is across the board, the timeline, be able to marry those up and say, we plan to get all of these things out by August. Like they need to see that. And if and this is what we think it's going to take to get to that tells a fuller picture so that we can have more of a robust conversation around why there is a need for this, as opposed to, because when you just look at it, it does look like, well, we're just hiring 6 people and we don't know what those 6 people will be doing as far as funding opportunities.
So let me ask this question, because I want to make sure that I present this correctly, because the next focus area is family support services. That's coming on Thursday. The next one won't come for a couple months, or not, I guess, a little bit of programming. Then, so March would be when we're looking at prenatal. So given that, I mean, and the whole strategic framework is out there.
Correct.
We just have decided to break it up.
So what do you
What
need
timing?
What do you need for family supports and what do you need for prenatal? And when do you need prenatal? So if prenatal is rolling out in March. Do you expect to when do you have to have that person?
Yeah, prenatal won't roll out in March. Prenatal will roll out closer to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so that's my question. I mean, do you need 3 people now if the next strategy is not coming out until the end of the year? So what do we need now to be able to manage family supports effectively? And show me what that's going to look like. And I'll be like, okay, she needs this amount of people for program supports. And then you can say that now we have another one that's rolling out in August or whatever. I need another person by this time to onboard them so that they're ready, boots on the ground by the time this rolls out. So that's the timeline that I want to see to be able to understand when are we onboarding all of these people? Because immediately I'm thinking, we don't need all of them right now, unless you tell me we need all of these people for family supports.
I will definitely do it that way. I will tell you,
Does that
it
make
feels
sense?
like I'm piecemeal rather than bringing people on, getting them ready, helping them be a part of the process. But I definitely will do it that way. And I understand it. I absolutely understand it. Yeah.
And you can make that argument too. I mean, if you don't think it's effective to bring them on just before, explain that to me why. Why is it valuable to have all of these people now? That will help me make a decision. Then because my mind immediately goes to then if this other one's not rolling out till then, she can wait until then, but if it makes sense, help me explain that, understand that. Does that make sense?
Dr. Glenn, it may also be
Yes.
helpful for you to remember that the council actually voted on the budget. We did contemplate one additional position. So that was put into the budget that we voted on and accepted. if, and I don't know where Sika's mind is on this, and Sika, maybe, I heard you just respond to Dr. Glenn with, while I really wanted to bring everybody on at once and get everybody up to speed, let me finish mine and you correct me. That's what I heard you say. I can do it the way you're asking. So that's what I heard you say. If the first part is right, we have to amend the budget because we do not have it in the budget at all. That I don't need experience on. That I know currently in the position that I'm currently holding as a member of the community and the treasurer. Outside of that, if we want these additional positions, we want 2 positions, 3 positions. It is all within our ability, and we have the ability as a council to amend the budget.
Either way.
But it requires that we amend the budget. So
Would anybody have a position that this would need to go through the budget?
I would say this, no. And here's why. I think it's a waste of time. The reason I think it's a waste of time is because of that point I just made. While I would like it to go through that, because I would. Well, I would like it to go through that if there is no requirement. We have built a budget around flexibility. That flexibility, if we go down this path, that flexibility won't exist 2 years from now or 3 years from now. It will be baked. The positions are baked in. By not stair-stepping it kind of just before we have the need, we're sort of baking that in. Again, property values may go up like crazy and taxpayers, the economy become booming back and taxpayers won't scrutinize. I don't know. But there's no requirement that it go through the finance committee, only because we contemplated the fact that the council may determine needs, and we built contingencies in for it, and we have reserves, and we have money sort of left over from the first year that we didn't spend. So there's money there. Again, you are baking in for the future. And you know what, come April or May, whenever the governor makes the appointments, there may be 2, brand new council members have very different opinions than I do. So, we'll see what happens, but there's no reason to.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
When I saw what's in the packet for this Thursday, I immediately thought that we may be open for a long conversation of what is being proposed. So it's helpful to see who all was at the services committee, because that was majority of, okay. But I'm wondering if, or maybe I'm suggesting proposing, if you're going to have this discussion at Thursday.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay.
For Thursday.
Okay. Does this process though impact what you have on the agenda for Thursday?
Well, the agenda for Thursday is contemplating family support services.
Yeah.
And then we also have built in an open discussion to kind of satisfy that executive session, which didn't want to call it that because that kind of intimates a closed door session, and that's not what it is. And so to Chair Glenn's point, the discussion about family support services, I think has to, if that all goes through and everybody's good with it, I think we have to have a subsequent conversation about staffing. And maybe that can happen during the open discussion, because if all of that goes through, that's 5 procurements we got to do.
Mr. Watts, I would remind you though, with the 5 procurements, if you remember our process, those 5 procurements, the draft will have to come to the council. And once the draft is approved, it would then go to the next meeting for final approval. Again, without a need for any other committee for a staffing change. And there really isn't one because it is built into the budget if the council so desires. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I don't think it requires, I think it's a good idea what Dr. Glenn is proposing, and that is, hey, we've thrown out, here's where we would like to get Children's Services Council of Leon County. And here's why, and here's how that matches. And you know, look, they're 10, pretty smart people on this council, at least 9 of them are. And I would just suggest that they can take that information and make a decision.
Okay.
And kind of digest it. And they don't need to make the decision on Thursday. We have enough time built in that that I think we could hire a couple of quality assurance people quickly enough as we're getting, the procurements put together.
Okay.
And I would like,
I do want to clarify something.
Oh, please, go ahead.
I'm fairly sure the Program Services Committee was trying to streamline so that we could try to move faster, so we wouldn't be bringing a draft and waiting 30 days and bringing the final.
Regardless, you have to bring, unless you've got a procurement ready.
No, I thought it was the scope of work. We'd be
Yeah, bringing the scope of work,
not
that's
the
true.
entire.
Right, but
No.
we still have to approve something. We're not approving it.
Yeah,
Our-
yeah, but I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. That was more my point. Make sure I didn't miss something with the way that the
The
Program
program.
Services Committee was going to suggest to kind of streamline. That's my only point.
the only thing that I would like to recommend is, as the family supports plan or strategy is laid out on Thursday, that in anticipation of the staffing conversation, you comment on how much staffing you need to be able to execute that strategy effectively. And I think that would help inform and prepare people for this conversation. Are y'all opposed to that?
I'm
Being
not.
included, okay. Okay, cool with that, okay. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Green around this staffing structure, the compensation, the positions, or anything like that?
No, but you're gonna fill out completely the form as
Yeah, and
Dr. Glenn's instructing. Okay. So we'll have
the
a
compensation.
better number.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not real concerned about the percentage. I am concerned about the total dollar amount. Because we are baking that in.
I know we said a mixture, but you're just proposing for the insurance example, just put the family number all the way across.
I don't know that, I mean,
Like,
I think, so of those 3 program, maybe 2 of the 3, you just do a blended rate. I mean, we are assigning the minimal, or the minimum to each position that we're suggesting we create. I'm suggesting that is way underfunding, and again, it is a budget that is supposed to be based on reality, and that is not.
So I want to ask a question. Well, no, I won't ask that.
Please do.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked at and did the health insurance, so of course it's done by age of all the people in the family and all of that. So for the positions we already have, those are actual numbers. So for the ones that we're contemplating, I guess just use a mid-age, mid-range.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
Coverage.
look, we are very
I
lucky.
base them,
Ms. Clay does more work than anybody else and seemingly is the least expensive. So don't get married and don't have kids. I'm kidding. But I don't know that there are many Jacintas out there. I think we
Do a
are going
mixture.
to start
Yeah, mix it.
to hire people with families who rely on health insurance as one of their benefits.
and then I should have disability by the next time we present this. I should have that. I just did not have it yet.
Yeah, Brown and Brown could do that in a.
It's athletic. It's through our
Yeah, but-
MOU.
Oh, but
It's-
Brown and Brown doesn't place it for you?
Mm-mm. It's through our MOU. Brown and Brown did the life insurance, but
Right.
disability is through Aflac. So we're trying to.
Again, the insurance geek in me, why did we go to a separate, I mean, Brown and Brown can place you with Aflac.
So,
Well, who's the MOU? Who's,
the MOU is with the county.
okay, and that's who they have?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So Brown and Brown suggested that we look at that because of our numbers. And so
Yeah.
we ended up,
Yeah, they're
but
Right.
we ended up coming back around to Brown and Brown. We're just with a different representative that does the county stuff. But it still ended up being cheaper than for us to try to do it separately.
Okay, let's move forward on the agenda. Any other comments or discussion questions? Okay, all right. So we had on here a recommendation to send this to the Finance and Budget Committee, but we just decided we don't need to do that. I would like to recommend that you all prepare this again based on the conversation that we have in anticipation that that's going to go to the council in a future meeting. And I would also like to recommend that as you share the family support presentation on Thursday, that includes a staffing component to it, to give them a good feel for realistically what this would take to do what we want the council to agree to. Are you all in agreement with that?
I am, as long as we are taking existing staff as a resource that we can spread amongst them. You know, that was really my point about quality assurance positions. I'm all for those. I'm rather more of those than what we got. I mean, that to me is kind of what,
The bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that was a good point that
okay.
Mr. Watts made.
So thank you very much. So those are our recommendations. Do we have any public comment, Ms. Clay?
No public comment.
Ms. Green, you have a comment?
No, I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying spread the quality assurance across all the positions we currently have?
No, I'm saying when Dr. Glenn said the positions that you will need
Yes.
in addition to the ones you currently have. In other words, you know, we have employees who are currently doing functions. Could we
put quality assurance as a part?
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Okay.
even if it's
Yeah.
not the whole kit and caboodle, maybe it's a small piece of it. For example, your finance manager, what a perfect quality assurance to give her the ELC, seeing as though she's going to be the one issuing the checks based on whether or not they meet two criteria. Are they an approved provider? And are we paying them for 1 month? Yes, check the box, move on. She's doing it already.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Watts? Okay, all
Or
right.
he.
What's that? Well,
You
it
said
seems like-
she,
yeah.
no, you said she.
Well, we only have
Or
he.
he.
I mean, she's,
Or them.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm
Oh,
trying to
yes.
make a bad
Oh,
joke.
okay.
That's all. I'm not a joke. I was trying to,
No worries.
you know what I'm
Correct.
trying to do. Yeah,
I
it
do
didn't work.
now.
All
It
right.
didn't work.
So,
So I have the recommendation.
you do have, all right, and then, I don't, do we need a formal approval for those recommendations? I think we all agree with those recommendations. Okay,
And with the recommendation that it is, we are not bringing it to the Finance and Budget Committee.
correct, right, we take that out.
You are alert, once the decision is made, you're alerting the Finance and Budget Committee, because at their next meeting, they will need to restructure
Yeah,
the
the
budget.
budget, okay.
But I don't, it seems like a waste of.
Let's have another meeting for that. Okay, completely agree.
Okay.
Okay, so, Ms. Clay, when will our next meeting date be?
March 13th.
March 13th. All right, guys, mark your calendars.
I think we already have, haven't you?
You should have it on.
I have gone through and think mastered the Jacinta invite process.
Let me see, you just.
5 o'clock executive committee, look at that, I recognize
We are
the
getting
Jacinta
there.
fingerprint. It worked, at least for me.
I've never had a problem with the invite, so it should be all right. Let's
Yeah,
see.
my problem was never with the invites, it was the number of and the conflicting dates and times.
I have it on my calendar too, so thank you. All right, we're good. Okay, and then the next meeting agenda. Do we have that mapped out yet? Not really.
Not really. I think it'll depend on what comes out of council meeting, and so it could be just bringing this back more refined.
Okay,
We know that we're gonna bring it back with, the changes made to
Yeah.
the staffing piece.
okay,
But let's just see.
okay, and check in.
Yeah, because right now, this is all I have for executive. I don't have anything else.
Okay, and then our March council meeting is it on the 16th?
Yes, we moved it because of spring break.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the, okay, now that I may not have right. Okay, let's see.
So it should be,
It should be the
No.
23rd.
Oh, right, it's not the 16th, it is the 20th.
it's the 23rd.
You took it off the 16th,
Yeah.
yes, that all worked for me. CSC, right, 4 o'clock. Not 3 o'clock.
Correct.
Which is not on my calendar.
It's not on your calendar.
No. All right, so I will have to make sure I have that on my calendar. All right, and then, okay, and we are now it's time for committee member comments. Do we have any comments?
I have one, but it's really meant more for the agenda. We talked a little bit about coming up with some sort of a travel policy that mirrored the states, and that ultimately whoever the chair is would approve that. So we have a kind of general framework in mind, but I have yet to see a travel policy that is pulled from the state's policy. And I bring it up for this reason. There has been travel done, and I've shared my frustration over one trip with Sika. Having said that, I just received the copy of the most recent credit card, and again, they have already been approved by you, Madam Chair, and in which case I'm A-OK. And there's no doubt that it was an official, it wasn't a junket. Having said that, again, we are baking numbers into a budget, and as we are serving a population who is struggling to have gaps filled in their lives, it is, I think, incumbent upon us and you as chair, for the time you're the chair, to be sensitive that we are spending dollars wisely and spending them in such a manner that would not insult the people that we're trying to serve. And again, I don't want approval of the travel, but I do want to be able to, as I go through the expenses and I look at hotel rooms and the cost of those hotel rooms, that those, remember we talked about, just give you a general idea of how much it was going to cost, that those are things that you have approved. And once they're approved, totally fine. The chair says so.
It's my understanding that policy goes into effect once her contract is completely done, which is going to be up for the council to make a final decision on this meeting coming up.
Mm.
So at this moment, I am not currently approving travel receipts
Okay.
at all. But once her contract is in place, you're looking confused.
I am, because I haven't gotten a directive on pulling a travel policy together.
We were creating,
No,
over here.
I don't think so. We asked Mr. Rowe to go back and look at the policy of travel for state employees, right? That had nothing
we were
with-
discussing.
Okay.
but- Yeah, so Mr. Rowe was looking at that and pulling that in as a part of her current contract, which I did see the revised. I think he did send it to all, I know
Yes.
I received it.
Right, this is not just the executive director, this is a travel policy for the CSC.
That's
Okay.
what, okay.
And all it needs to do, we're mirroring the state policy. on reimbursement for meals. Those kinds of things, I just would like to mirror someone's policy
Okay,
of how we spend taxpayers' resources.
okay. So remind me, because I don't think we're working on that at all. Your team is
No,
not working on that.
This is the first.
You're right, it was, I was looking at CPAC,
Yeah.
I just, it was with Mr.
Mr.
Rowe.
Rowe, okay.
They have to.
We need to settle that.
But I can get with
Okay.
Mr. Rowe and find out what that conversation was, and we can absolutely
Draft the travel policy for that.
draft the travel policy.
Because it happened during the conversation around her contract.
Right, but
Yeah.
one really has nothing to do with the other, and I can see why you would,
Yeah.
at least for me, it didn't. I just would like a policy.
Okay,
And I would like that burden.
yeah.
Again, I look down the budget every month and I look at now granularly how money is spent. I wouldn't have approved it, plain and simple. I'm just telling you. Somebody using a P card on a vending machine for $1.60 for a soda, I wouldn't have approved. I just would have said, that's something you pick up on your own. But if it's the policy, then they're just following the policy.
Okay,
Are
so
you
we
saying
just,
that's an actual item?
Yes, sir.
can we have now an agenda item for our next meeting for the
Can I-
review? You wanna?
Yeah, I do, because that was, I think, I don't know what month that was in.
December.
So I think that was when we were trying to make sure we had water for the council and we were at the board. of
This was at a Westin in Southwest Florida. I'm trying to remember the.
Oh, so that was at our FAC retreat. That would have been at our FAC retreat.
Okay.
I didn't buy.
You know how I feel, Jacinta knows how I feel really about spending the. And everybody else can spend however they want. It doesn't bother me. I just feel uncomfortable approving things and bringing them as a consent agenda item to the council. When I don't know what to bounce it up against. Again, this is kind of now going back to my old division of accounting and auditing. When Mr. Watts submits a bill from DCF that says, I want you, CFO, to pay this bill. What we do is we go and say, does he have the authority to have incurred these costs? Check, yes. The Florida legislature says these funds are appropriated to you. Is it with a state term contract? And if not, is it a reasonable cost? Check, yes. It's literally just following policy.
Correct.
And that's all I was
Absolutely.
bringing it up for.
So we don't have the policy in place yet, and we have requested the policy is brought for next executive council meeting.
Yes.
So that's an agenda item
Mhm.
that we're gonna follow through on. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No worries. Any other comments? Ms. Watts, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, so I do think we got some things accomplished. It wasn't quite where I thought we would have been. But I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We are now at 6:58.